Listen closely. That sound? Creepy. It's the sound of a ghost. We are told a story about a giant that fell, a kingdom that crumbled. We remember the plastic buttons, the game of Snake, and the day Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in 2007 and killed the king. But what if I told you that everything you believe about the death of Nokia is a lie? Right now, in your pocket, there is an iPhone, or maybe a Samsung, a device of the future. But every single time you send a text, every time you scroll through TikTok, and every time you make a call, you are paying a tax to a dead man. This is the story of the $100 billion ghost. The company that invented the future, threw it in a dumpster, and then decided to own the very air we breathe. It starts in a cluttered garage in Espoo, Finland. A researcher is digging through a box labeled Obsolete 2004. He pulls out a device. It's sleek. It has a large glowing color screen. It has no buttons. It is a fully functional, internet-connected, touchscreen smartphone. And the date on the internal motherboard says 2004. That is 3 long years before the first iPhone was even a whisper in Joni Ive's ear. Why wasn't this in our hands? Why didn't Nokia rule the world? Because the board of directors looked at this miracle, this piece of alien technology, and they laughed. People want buttons, they said. This is a toy, they said. They threw the future into a literal trash can. Fast forward, 2013. The headlines are screaming. Microsoft buys Nokia's phone business. The end of an era. We watched the CEO cry. We saw the factories close. The world moved on. But while the world was looking at the funeral, Nokia was busy in the basement, building a trap. You see, Nokia didn't just make phones. They built the language that phones speak. The 3G, the 4G, the 5G. The invisible web that holds our civilization together. They realized that you don't need to sell the car if you own the road. Think about it. Apple is the most valuable company on earth. But every single iPhone sold contains thousands of patents owned by Nokia. Every time Tim Cook sells a device for $1,200, a secret notification pings in a quiet office in Finland. Thank you for the royalty. It is the invisible tax, a multi-billion-dollar ransom that every tech giant on the planet is forced to pay every single year just to exist. And they tried to fight it. Oh, they tried. Apple sued them. Samsung sued them. The biggest legal wars in human history, fought in secret rooms with mahogany tables. Apple thought they were the lions, but they realized they were trapped in a cage made of Nokia's ideas. We thought Nokia was the loser of the smartphone war. But as we dig deeper into the archives, they knew they would lose. And they let it happen, because the trap was already set. But there is one secret, one specific patent that Apple would burn their own headquarters to the ground just to get rid of. And it's the only thing keeping the ghost alive. What is the patent of the dead? And why is your phone currently sending data to a company that doesn't exist anymore? The answer is hidden in the signal. January 2007. Helsinki is a fortress of ice. Inside the glass-walled headquarters of Nokia, The air isn't cold. It's thick. It's the smell of expensive leather, stale coffee, and a suffocating sense of invincibility. On a mahogany table sits a device smuggled in from Cupertino. A glass slab. No buttons. No stylus. No antenna. To the men in the room, it looks like a mirror for a narcissist. You see, at this exact moment, Nokia doesn't just own the market. They are the market. They sell 460 million phones a year. That's 1 out of every 3 phones on the entire planet. They felt like gods. But gods have one fatal flaw. They stop looking down. The engineers at Nokia had seen this toy before. The battery life is a joke, they said. It'll shatter the moment it hits a finished sidewalk, they laughed. And a touchscreen? People want the click. People need the tactile feedback of a physical button. They weren't just wrong. They were delusional. But here is the secret history that history books tend to ignore. Deep in the bowels of Nokia's R&D, years before Steve Jobs stood on that stage, Nokia already had it. They had a functional touchscreen tablet. They had a mobile app store. They had the internet in the palm of their hand in 2004. But they killed it. They strangled their own future in a Finnish sauna because it was too risky for their current profit margins. They sat in that sauna, sweating out the toxins of a long day, deciding that the world didn't need a computer in its pocket. We build tools, they said. Apple builds toys. It was the Finnish sauna betrayal. A betrayal of their own brilliance for the sake of comfort. Little did they know, the toy from Cupertino was about to burn their fortress to the ground. As the iPhone hit the shelves, Nokia's stock didn't just dip. It bled. The kingdom turned into a ghost town. The unbreakable 3310 became a relic of a primitive age. But this is where the story gets legendary. This is where the global crime of corporate survival begins. While the world was busy watching Nokia die, the lawyers in Helsinki were doing something terrifying. They weren't mourning. They were digging. They realized that even if they couldn't build the best phone anymore, they had already built the roads the iPhone had to drive on. Every single cellular tower, every piece of 3G, 4G, and 5G signal processing, every way Botox to the sky. Nokia owned the patents. All of them. We can move this up. "2014. The headline read, Microsoft buys Nokia's handset business. To the average consumer, it was a funeral. The king was dead. His crown sold for pennies on the dollar, and the world was ready to forget the name that once defined a generation. But while the press was busy writing obituaries, Nokia was busy building a ghost. You see, most people thought Nokia was in the business of selling plastic bricks and colorful screens. They weren't. They were in the business of owning the sky. While Apple and Samsung were fighting over rounded corners and swipe to unlock, A secret division inside Espoo, Finland was quiet. Too quiet. They called it Nokia Technologies. And they weren't designing phones. They were weaponizing 20,000 distinct patents. Imagine a toll booth. Now, imagine that toll booth isn't on a highway. It's inside your pocket. It's in your hand. It's in every photo you send of your child and every I love you text to your partner. Every time your smartphone connects to a tower, anywhere on this planet, a tiny invisible clock starts ticking. And that clock, it pays Nokia. They call it the essential patent. In the tech world, it's the nuclear option. If you want your phone to talk to a 4G network, you have to use Nokia's math. If you want your battery to last more than 2 hours while searching for a signal, you have to use Nokia's engineering. You don't have a choice. You pay the tax or your smartphone becomes a very expensive paperweight. The great extraction began. Nokia stopped begging people to buy their phones and started suing the people who did. Apple sued. Samsung sued. Lenovo, Oppo, Xiaomi. They all stood before the Finnish giants, and one by one, they knelt. Think about the irony. Every time an iPhone fanboy mocks the dead Nokia brand, they are likely doing it on a device that sent a royalty check to Finland this morning. The ghost is hungry, and it hasn't even started on 5G yet. But there's a darker side to this invisible empire. Because when one company owns the blueprint of how the world speaks, they don't just own the market. They own the sovereignty of our communication. As 5G began to roll out, the stakes shifted from billions to trillions. Nokia wasn't just a patent trade anymore. They were becoming the backbone of the New World Order. But then, someone found a loophole. A secret so deep it could dismantle the entire Finnish fortress and leave the world's data completely unprotected. You think you're paying for a phone? You're paying for a hostage. And in part 4, we find out who's really holding the gun. You look at your phone, that sleek piece of glass and titanium. You see the Apple logo or the Samsung curve. You think you bought it from them. You think you're their customer. But you aren't. Not really. Behind every notification, behind every high-speed download, and every crystal-clear FaceTime call, there is a ghost. A ghost that haunts the very circuitry of the modern world. And that ghost is hungry. In the glass-walled offices of Espoo, Finland, there is no manufacturing line. There are no boxes of phones waiting to be shipped to retailers. Instead, there are servers. Billions of lines of code. Thousands of blueprints. A mountain of intellectual property so vast it makes the great library of Alexandria look like a child's sketchbook. This is the Nokia patent portfolio. Every time your iPhone pings a 5G tower, a microtransaction is triggered. A fraction of a cent, a royalty fee, a digital tribute. It travels silently across the Atlantic, bypasses the glitz of Silicon Valley, and lands directly in the coffers of a company the world thought was dead. Apple doesn't just sell you a phone. They lease you the right to use Nokia's air. Why? How did a company that lost the hardware war end up owning the battlefield? It's called Standard Essential Patents, or SEPs. Think of them as the DNA of the internet. You can't build a human without DNA, and you can't build a smartphone without Nokia's math. If Apple refused to pay, the signal stops. The iPhone becomes a very expensive, very beautiful paperweight. It's not just a few dollars here and there. We are talking about a multi-billion-dollar invisible tax that every single smartphone user on Earth pays. Nokia didn't lose the phone war. They just realized that building the cars was too much work. So they decided to own the roads instead. Every time you accelerate, you pay the toll. And they are raising the prices. But here's the terrifying part. As we move into 6G, as we connect our cars, our heart monitors, and our very cities to the grid, Nokia's grip isn't loosening. It's tightening. They aren't just your landlord anymore. They are the air you breathe. But what happens when the landlord gets greedy? What happens when the companies we love, Apple, Google, Samsung, decide they've paid enough? A war is coming. A war fought not with soldiers, but with injunctions and kill switches. And if Nokia decides to flip the switch, your digital world goes black. You think you know who runs the world. In part 5, we look at the secret kill switch lawsuits that almost deleted the iPhone from existence. And the one man in Finland who holds the key to your connectivity. The signal is dying. Static sound effect. Part.
You probably think you're watching this on a device made by Apple or Samsung or Google. You're wrong. Physically, sure, you're holding glass, aluminum, and a battery. But the air around you, the invisible waves carrying this very video into your palm, that belongs to the ghost of Finland. Welcome to the End Game. Part 5. Gods of the Infrastructure. In the world of tech, there is a hierarchy that no one talks about. At the bottom, you have the consumers, the sheep. Above them, the manufacturers, the farmers. But at the very top are the architects. The ones who own the laws of physics that make the digital world possible. When Microsoft bought Nokia's phone business in 2014, the world wept. Headlines read, "The death of a giant." Poor Nokia. They couldn't keep up with the iPhone. They were relics. But while the world was attending their funeral, Nokia was busy buying the cemetery, and the roads leading to it, and the very ground the mourners stood on. They didn't just pivot, they ascended. They realized that building a car is a sucker's game. It's expensive, people's tastes change, and the margins are thin. But owning the toll bridge, that is God tier. Today, Nokia owns over 20,000 patent families. We are talking about the fundamental building blocks of 4G, 5G, and the upcoming 6G. Every time an iPhone connects to a tower, a silent ping sounds in a bank account in Helsinki. Every time a Tesla updates its software, Nokia gets a cut. Every time a drone flies over a battlefield using encrypted signals, the ghost gets paid. Think about the scale of this. Apple, the $3 trillion titan, has fought Nokia in courtrooms from Munich to Washington, D.C.
Apple's lawyers, the most expensive in the world, tried to break the Nokia tax. And do you know what happened? Apple settled. They signed a multi-year cross-license agreement, because even the king of Cupertino knows you cannot fight the air you breathe. It's a masterclass in survival. Nokia went from 40% of the phone market to 0%, only to control 100% of the connectivity that those phones rely on. They are the invisible nervous system of the planet, from the subsea cables at the bottom of the Atlantic to the satellites orbiting our heads. Nokia isn't the device in your pocket. Nokia is the world you live in. But there's a shadow over this empire. As we move towards 6G, the stakes have shifted from business to war. Governments are realizing that whoever controls the infrastructure controls the truth. Nokia is currently sitting on a secret project, something so powerful it could bypass the internet as we know it. They call it the Neural Fabric. And it's not designed for phones. It's designed for us. But what happens when the architect decides to close the door? What happens when the ghost in the signal starts talking back? To be continued in the final chapter.